Our topic today centers on independent business alliance structures. You might be in the position of transitioning your independent business alliance or IBA to a 501c3 nonprofit, forming a new shop local group in your community, or just curious about how different organizations fulfill their mission. So before we introduce our panel, I want to just acknowledge the question of what is an independent business alliance or an IBA? It's a very loose definition, but an IBA is a coalition of locally owned independent businesses, citizens, and community organizations united to support independent businesses and the local economy in a specific place or region. So it's very much defined by the communities that are bringing these IBAs forward. So we're lucky enough to have 4 IBA leaders with us today. They'll each share how their organizational structure works, whether they're a 501c3, C6, a cooperative, or something different. They'll also share what they like about their structure, and just like all of us, what is holding us back, what's holding them back, what they don't like about it, so that we can all learn from each other. So today we have Lauren Marutich from Local First in Durango, Colorado. She's representing a 501c6 membership-based nonprofit and a 501c3 community-based nonprofit. Amanda Converse from Love Live Local, based in Cape Cod. She's representing a 501c3 community-based nonprofit. Janeen Murray from Sonoma Country Go Local, from Sonoma County, California, representing a cooperative. And Katie Nave from BuyAlaska, actually is representing a program of her Alaska Small Business Development Center. So there is the what else? I know a lot of you actually ask questions, and one of them is like, what other kind of structures are out there? So that'll be part of our Q&A, is just to see if any of you know about different ways to organize IBAs, because we'd all be interested in learning how you're all doing this. So our panel is going to present, and like I said, afterwards, we're going to open it up to your questions. In the meantime, feel free to add any questions you have right into the chat anytime. Don't hold back. And again, many of you shared questions when you registered. We won't get to all those questions because there was a lot of them, which was fantastic. But I'll be sure to follow up with anybody who doesn't get their questions answered, and I'll share some other resources that I've discovered, but hopefully we'll get a lot of those out of your questions answered. And also just keep in mind that any questions that you don't get answered, or you stump us, just know that that's great seeds for future local leaders roundtable topics. So again, don't hold back on your questions. So we're going to go ahead and jump right to our panelists. We're going to start with Lauren, and she's going to talk about how her structure works, what she likes about it, and what is holding the organization back. So Lauren, off to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Again, my name is Lauren Baratich. I'm the CEO of Local First here in La Plata County, outside in Durango, Colorado. I feel like I am the freshman of this group. I started in January. And so I'm very excited to share with you what I do know and what I'm experiencing with having managing both a C3 and a C6. And then I look forward to the discussion and learning together with you all as well. As you know, the IBA side of the mission is, our major clientele. We consider Local First to serve as our umbrella organization, and it has 2 arms. The C6 is our member-based business, independent business alliance, and the C3 are charitable gifts in our foundation. And so if you hear me talking about the IBA side or the foundation side, that's how we break our 2 arms down in detail. Both play a very critical role in our ability to serve and build a resilient La Plata County and a thriving economy. And our approach to do this is definitely through a triple bottom line prioritization of putting people, planet, and a prosperous, just economy at the forefront of all of our work and our priorities. Both of our affiliations have advantages and, of course, some challenges as well. And I'm excited to share with you some observations that I've made. in where these areas can be addressed, and some solution finding is always really an interesting process as well to do with you all today. What we really like, what I've seen that works well with the IBA and the C6 side, is that it's a members approach, right? And so it helps us prioritize our clients first, right? It just really helps us narrow our focus to our 260 plus independent business is as our members and our nonprofits as well. I feel as if because we have that narrowed down approach, we're really able to work one-on-one with these groups. Even with a small staff of 3 people, we can offer a really big package to our members. I love that we can concentrate on beefing up our members' benefits packages through direct responses from our businesses. So we're really meeting their needs based on their requests. That's a great approach. The other thing that we have been very successful in on the C6 side is that we can influence public policy. The LPEA, La Plata County Electric Association, has been going through a lot of transitions over the last 10 years, and Local First has played a large role in influencing board membership and working with the community to support members running who represent a sustainable future for La Plata County. So that's been really great as a C6 as well. And then it's also given us this creative pathway to meeting the needs of the community in different ways, like launching a First Friday. We just started that this year. As I came on to do First Friday Art Walks, we throw an event at the end of the year called Noel Night, and it's just a ginormous independently owned shopping experience. And we market that like crazy. And we just also launched our members bash, so Business Alliance social hours. And this is a way for us to connect directly, and that's on that C6 level. It's very flexible, and it's a great way to meet the needs of our community directly. On the foundation side, we just launched that in 2019, and so that's relatively new to our organization. Some benefits are that, of course, we can collect charitable gifts, and we just launched our membership program. So we have a localist program at a variety of levels. So any gift supports a membership, and that membership is really an investment on a local individualized level to the work that we're doing, right? We call it a vote with your dollars. It allows for funding opportunities. It puts us in a bigger grant pool. Oftentimes C3s give that extra reach, as far as availability and accessibility to foundations and grants. We can engage a large community pool because of the individualized programs, and we can still do some really great advocacy work, social equity, sustainability engagement, and of course, advocacy for the people. So we're working on healthcare issues, affordable housing, livable wages, and then, of course, green sustainability of our businesses themselves. Some people have asked, do you feel as if your C3 limits your advocacy work? And I have to tell you, it doesn't. Most advocacy groups that I work with are designated C3s. The only thing we're limited to is A, it can't be our number one hours when we report to the IRS. And 2, we just have to make sure that we're not endorsing candidates during elections. Our C6 can do that, our C3 can't. So that brings us to some challenges. You walk a very fine line when you have both. Our membership levels on the IBA side are relatively low. We charge $150 a year, which I think is quite jaw-dropping. It's also a very inclusive way of engaging a local independent business, right? Sometimes our businesses are owned by one person. They're a one-person entity to other businesses in town that employ 20 to 50 people. But at the same time, we're not making a lot of money on our IBA side right now. And so that's a challenge. it's tough to meet the needs of a huge, large membership base of over 260 people, especially when we're taking this one-on-one approach to make sure that we are there for them and what their specific needs are when we have such a small team of 3. And then again, like I touched on before, walking the line of the political involvement between the 2 entities can just be a little tricky. So just making sure that we're staying within our lines. Lastly, as far as the challenge there goes, is that I have 2 boards and I have 2 budgets. So you're following the legalities of that. Then it could get muddy if you want to have a strategic plan that does not use the overarching local first or your organizational umbrella. I know in the past that our organization had 2 managing directors. So one managing director of the foundation and another of the IBA. And I think that that's complicated as well as far as communication and leadership goes. I oversee both. And that gives me a nice oversight of making sure that we're really aligned, that whatever we're doing with the IBA is supporting our foundation work, and whatever the foundation is fundraising for through something like our impact fund, that it's all contributing back towards, a thriving, just, equitable economy. So the other thing that's complicated there is resource sharing. We have all these legal documents that describe how and the ways of which we can legally share resources between the C3 and the C6, and that makes things very challenging as well. I talked about the 2 budgets, and again, just making sure that we get through the muck of identifying mission vision and the alignment of the work on both sides. So I think that's where I'll stop for now. And that's been my experience so far. I really look forward to hearing from the other presenters and answering any questions that you have along the way.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, so much. And for those of you who just came on, just realize that we're going through our first 4 leaders to talk about what their IBA structure is like, what's great about it, what's not so great about it. And then we'll open it up to questions and introductions. But those of you who came in a little later, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, just so we know who you are. And like I said, after the 4 presenters present, we'll open it up to more intros to get to know each other. So Lauren just talked about a nonprofit that's both a 501c3 and a 501c6. So she had a lot to cover in a short amount of time, but we all do. So Amanda, we'll hand it off to you to talk a little bit about how Love Live Local is structured, what you like about it, and what you find to be really challenging.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll just give you a little bit of background. Love Live Local was founded in 2013 by myself and 2 other small business owners. And at the time, we just weren't hearing people talking locally about thinking local first and shopping local. And so we started to provide a voice for that here in our community on the Cape. And for many years, it was our side hustle, our passion project. And so technically it was very much a business. So we operated it as a business until 2019, when we were approached by a large donor who said, we could support you in a more significant way if you were a 501c3 nonprofit. And that right there just shows one of the benefits of being a 501c3. Any other structure, you don't get that they wouldn't get the tax write-off that they get when they donate to a 501c3. So that was when we really took a look at our structure. And, I decided to close my businesses and just focus on Love Live Local full time. While we were operating as a business, though, we were able to develop really strong income streams. And so we have 3 festivals that we put on a year, and we charge vendor fees for those. We have 2 publications that we put out every year, and we charge for ads for that. And then we own and operate a retail store, which is where I am right now. That's why I have a rack of clothes hanging up behind me. And so those are all income streams that they now go to help fund the nonprofit. And so, becoming a nonprofit, like I said, in addition to being able to attract large donors, we can attract smaller individual donors. We are able to access grant funding through foundations, but also at the state level, we've been able to get state earmarks through our local representatives, as well as state grants. We have the sponsorship pool has opened significantly, because when we were operating as a business or as a 501c6, those are marketing dollars that businesses have to spend. But when you're a 501c3, they can be seen as charitable donations when they sponsor the organization or the event that we put on. So that's been really great. And it's also opened us up to a lot more collaborations with a lot of in-kind donors. So our local radio station now gives us spots for free, and they wouldn't have done that before. And even as a 501c6, they don't really tend to kind of give that stuff to that structure, people or organizations under that structure. So that's been really good. But then we also collaborate with a lot of other local nonprofit organizations. We did consider becoming a membership organization. It was something we had avoided for many reasons. One is our community, we have 15 chambers of commerce and a regional chamber of commerce. So because we're 15 towns and one big region. So we felt like, and we also have a young professionals group and another, lots of membership organizations. And we felt like we didn't want to kind of enter that pool. And the chambers were already sort of seeing us as being a bit competitive. And we wanted to not have that. We wanted to be able to collaborate with them as opposed to compete with them for membership dollars. So that really went into it. And also I had worked for a business improvement district, which is something that I can also touch on in terms of a structure, but and that is technically a membership organization. And it was really challenging balancing all of those needs from the members. And there was something like, 150 members that they had to make sure they were serving all of their needs. And we wanted to be able to just speak as about local businesses in general. And we produced a guidebook, and we didn't want to be beholden to members and mentioning them, as opposed to what would like an authentic day on Cape Cod look like, as opposed to like having to highlight specific businesses. So we wanted to be able to kind of be neutral about who we talked about and who we highlighted. And in terms of the business improvement district, if you're not familiar with those, they're a really good option for downtowns and main streets. And those are special assessment districts. So a percentage of every property in the district, a percentage of their property taxes goes into the bids budget for the year. So the town collects the taxes and then gives the money to the bid to operate the organization. And it is a really nice structure in that they still have to raise some money, but they don't have to raise as much as a regular nonprofit. So they do operate as a 501c6. So they also started a 501c3 arm of their organization. It is a CDC, so it's a Community Development Corporation, which in Massachusetts entitles them to a lot of tax credits and different benefits. And I don't know how that translates across other states. There are some challenges with being a 501c3. I would say our biggest one is communicating that we're a 501c3. I think people automatically assume we're a membership organization because we represent small businesses. And then we're also in that 501c3 pool, we're competing with, cancer research and human services, and people tend to not look at us as the same kind of charitable organization as that. And the others, we have businesses. I'm sorry if my internet is bad, but Comcast has a monopoly here. So a lot of our local businesses ask us all the time, how can we support you? And an easy way would be to say, become a member, but we're not a membership organization. So, we have to obviously we can say you can donate, but it feels different, a little bit different for them, I think. And then they can advertise with us in our guidebook. So that tends to be, you know, where we direct them to, but those are I would say the major challenges for us.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you also talking about the bid structure, because that's definitely something else we should pursue more in the future. So we heard 501c3s, 501c6, business improvement districts, and we have Janeen Murray next talking about something completely different, which is a cooperative. And she is going to tell us the pluses, the minuses, and everything in between. So thank you, Janeen, for being here.
Thank you. This is such a good comparison. It's just doesn't happen enough. So I appreciate you pulling it together. Yes, our model is not a typical one or a common one. And I wasn't involved in the founding of Go Local, but I do believe that, you know, those community members and handful of core businesses who were, you know, wanting to form Go Local, it was sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of another between nonprofit and co-op. And at the time, I believe the co-op structure just seemed really kind of cool and amazing and unique and sounded really great. And there's a lot of elements to the co-op structure that are, you know, just kind of visionary. And then there's the reality of it. And so, and at the same time, so we were the co-op officially formed, and our bylaws were signed in 2010. It got started in 2000, you know, in the late 2000s as it was formed. Uniquely at the same time, Go Local formed with a board as a co-op. It's a California Consumer Cooperative, which is a corporation. So nobody really knows about them. And they have in general, co-ops are served best, I would say, when the members of the co-op all have an essential stake in the organization. And what I've learned since then, and just looking at successful co-ops elsewhere, is that when those members, say, for example, like the California Dairy Co-op or the Almond Growers Co-op, where it's essential for their distribution of their product to work together and to leverage better prices on something that's essential to their business. So they are absolutely invested in participating in that co-op. So for Go Local, independent business alliance, it's kind of part of it's an additional feel-good thing that's a part of their marketing, program that is just not essential. And so what we found early on is that a lot of the core elements of co-op bylaws are based on the members actively participating. And it's really more of a membership organization. And you know how independent businesses are. It's like herding cats to get them to, update their listing or whatever online. So I'm just going to share a few things because most of you probably are not familiar with what is different between a co-op and the general nonprofit structure. Well, one is that we're tax-wise, we just pay that flat amount to California, just like a nonprofit. So it's very simple, and tax-wise, we're kind of treated like a nonprofit. And however, we don't get access to grant pools and to other benefits. If you say you're a 501c3, to be able to, even getting alcohol donations for our annual event, on some form for the local brew pub. So that it's like immediately we're kind of given the boot when we really function like a nonprofit. I'll describe kind of some of the factors of the bylaws and then talk about how we then have began to have functioned for the last 13 years. So there's member class and investor class members of the co-ops, and it can be set up differently, but that's how ours was. And so at the time that it was created, we thought we'd have individual members and then business and organization nonprofit members. And for the first 2 or 3 years, we had individual members, but we found another kind of limitation of co-ops is that members should pay an initial capital contribution that then can be distributed as dividends at the end of each year based on the performance of the co-op. But we're a membership organization. It's not raking in a bunch of dough. And in fact, we had a few complications. One is one is that we found that individual membership was really difficult. They thought that they were going to start with a higher annual membership, and it was just too hard to get them to continue. Some of your IBAs do individual membership, and that's great. We just found it was, to try to get continuing payment. Then we turned it to a lifetime membership, and we lowered it, by 2/3. And then we pretty much just kind of dropped individual membership and said, it's free. Get a rewards card for free from us. And just here are ways that you can go local. So we focused on business and organization memberships. And then there's so many things that are unforeseen, but there's a lot of things that are locked in the Go Local bylaws. Including like even for committees, there is a thing written in for having committees, but it's pretty inflexible. Like if you want to change the bylaws, you have to get the vote of the board, and some things to change in the bylaws has to get the vote of the membership, but the members don't even know what a co-op is, and they don't really care. So, basically a lot of limitations that I wouldn't recommend. And then the distribution and dividends, didn't factor in the fact that we actually got sued at one point about 6 years ago or so. And the members didn't want to know about that. So we kind of kept it to ourselves. And that means that like net losses might have to go back to the be factored in to those members. And so we really have not collected that initial capital contribution, and we're treating it more as a membership organization, because no one wants to join a membership organization and then realize they owe because there was some legal issue, So basically we just simplified, and we just have it be a member organization. They pay their annual dues. We're not, really processing or factoring in member capital, because no one really cares or wants to, deal with that. And it just became very complicated. The other thing that happened is when Go Local formed is that it was Go Local as the membership organization, and then another group, an LLC, that was developing our rewards card that we ran for 10 years. And it was a local currency debit card. And so these two groups felt like they got married when Go Local joined. And so this LLC had developed the technology. And so that was the plan. And what has turned out since then is that now we actually run kind of manage two companies and two books. And it's more complicated than it needs to be. But the LLC, we find, has much more flexibility. It's a worker-owned LLC. So it has all that cooperative feel to it. And one example is, and we dropped the rewards card online tracking a component of the rewards card, because we just didn't want to develop that. We'd have to have so much capital to develop the technology as with changes that have happened over the last 10 years with point of sale systems and all that. But the LLC has kind of shifted more to be the media company that supports Go Local. So now our income is about 1/3 Go Local membership and sponsorship, and 2/3 are media products, publications, and that we manage. In fact, a really successful magazine called Made Local Magazine that really functions as a cooperative project. In spirit, we don't follow the bylaws, but really it's us. We started with $0, said, hey, if we could get enough advertisers and we do a little profit share with you, the designer, and you, the editor, you want to do it? And it's been successful for 10 years. So we feel like we live the spirit of the co-op, but the bylaws of that co-op has ended up being pretty heavy for us. Kind of saying we're a co-op is really cool and everybody likes it, but in reality, the members just don't want to participate in that active, ongoing way of owning the co-op. They treat it more like a membership organization. So
Thank you, Janeen. Yeah, thank you for being transparent. And it's definitely challenging being a visionary organization. So again, learning from your experiences and also, being open to models that might be out there to kind of take what you've learned and bring it to the next level, which you're kind of already doing with the magazine and the Go Local card. So I appreciate your insights for sure. Katie is going to talk to us about another model that is out there, which is being a program of another entity. And they are actually the Small Business Development Center in Alaska. So definitely interested in hearing more about the pluses and minuses of your model.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Katie Nave. Thanks, Jen. I am the program manager for BuyAlaska, and we are a statewide program under the Alaska Small Business Development Center. A little bit of a background about the program. The SBDC actually has had this program since the early 90s, and so it's been through a couple iterations during that time. It started off as a web page hosting platform for small businesses during the .com boom, when it was really expensive for small businesses to have their own site. So the BuyAlaska program actually hosted a page for businesses. It changed to more of a supply chain program over the years, and then actually went dormant for several years. And then under the vision of the SBDC executive director, the program relaunched in the wake of COVID-19 as a local first initiative. And that's when I came on board back in 2020. So I actually am just going to share my screen quickly because I wanted to, it's a little bit easier for me to show you all the structure of our organization. So as I mentioned, we're a program under the Alaska Small Business Development Center. The SBDC is actually hosted by the UAA Business Enterprise Institute, and that's so that they can get accreditation through the America's Small Business Development Center. And so the UAA Business Enterprise Institute is hosted by the University of Alaska Anchorage. So our program is generally under the UAA umbrella. And then I just wanted to share a little bit how our funding structure works. So the SBDC is funded partially by a core grant through the SBA. And then that funding is actually matched by the state of Alaska. And then we also get grants from government grants. We get sponsorships from local lenders in Alaska and nationwide. And then other grants as well as some program income. So I've got a few different masters up there, and I'm happy to share a little bit about kind of the pros and cons of that. So things that I like about it, well, being under the university structure actually provides me a lot of administrative support and oversight for the program to really function sustainably. There's also a lot of benefits that come with being a university employee. So that's a real benefit for myself and for employees that have worked with me in the past. Also being associated with the University of Alaska and with the Alaska Small Business Development Center, which are both very established organizations, has helped given credibility to the BuyAlaska program. And so, this includes working with businesses, working with other partner organizations, and then also with the general public. So things that I like about it, we're finding that the BuyAlaska program funding can really be built into other larger grant opportunities. So this has helped some larger grants come our way. And then we're also able to offer a lot of our services free of charge. So the SBDC is a business advising service, and everything that they do is free for businesses. So we actually try and do everything free for businesses as well. And then another thing that I like about it, as the program manager, actually this structure actually does simplify the process that I can really take action on in order to support small businesses as we see fit. And then, so things that are holding me back. Well, one thing I can mention is as a statewide program in Alaska, I have to cast a really wide net in order to include all of our members. And sometimes it can be difficult to really capture the richness from each community and meet the needs of each business that we represent. We have about 53 communities in Alaska in our network, and we have about 1,000 businesses. And yeah, Alaska is really big, and so it can often be challenging to get ears on the ground and just communicate the best things for folks to capture the message of looking local first. But it has also opened up an amazing opportunity to bring all of these communities together. So as a positive, we're really seeing that this program has acted as a hub for businesses. So we're seeing and definitely encouraging more business-to-business collaboration throughout the state, which is really important here in Alaska to foster those that local economic development piece, since we are so removed from the rest of the lower 48. So yeah, we're seeing that the program has become a great hub for the B2B collaboration, for other nonprofits and other organizations to collaborate statewide, and then also really encouraging people to buy from other Alaska products and services in the state. So the program has really been a fantastic addition in order to bring our gigantic state kind of more together. One of the other things that's kind of holding me back is that being under the university, our program spending is really highly regulated. We have oversight from several government agencies as well as the university itself in order to ensure ethical business practices and sustainability of the program. So you know, we're limited with what we can do with campaigns. And for instance, any sort of gaming component, any sort of contest we can't do that. Where our branding is also regulated by the university and has to be under their standards. And then also all of the spending and all of our messaging has to be tailored into some sort of educational framework. So anytime I'm submitting some sort of purchase request to the university, I have to mention how it has an educational component to it. Not too hard with the local first messaging, because we're just trying to teach people about the importance of spending dollars locally. So, but it is something to consider when I'm trying to spend money. I have to make sure that we're playing by the university's rules. And then also our income opportunities are really strictly limited as well under the same line there. Honestly, I don't even think I can accept member fees. It's just not really a good structure that the university would approve of. And then our sponsorships and funding, they all have to run through the university. They take 10% of any of the sponsorships that I would go out there and get for ourselves. And then, yeah, so, this can all be a very kind of bureaucratic system and just being under the large university. And then my involvement with the fundraising is actually a bit at arm's reach and highly dependent on the SBDC and university's efforts. And so another kind of thing that's holding me back is being a program under the Alaska SBDC. My program growth is really limited by the status of the SBDC, kind of what their goals are at the time. And sometimes the priorities of this program can kind of fall behind some of the other Alaska SBDC needs. So luckily I have a fantastic executive director that is super encouraging and has really helped us grow this program to what it is now. But I recognize that might not always be the case for other programs that may have the similar type of structure. And so can be a bit of a challenge if really want to get something done and there's just other priorities that need to be met first. But yeah, all in all, we've come a really long way in the last 3 years, and it's been a learning curve to kind of work under this structure. And yeah, there are good and bad things, but I think kind of once you figure out how to play by the university's rules, it actually does help to streamline things and go out there and get things done that I see fit.
Cool. Well, thanks, Katie, for that history. And like all four of you have said, there's definitely wonderful things about each one of your structures, but definitely things that we all struggle with. So I appreciate, again, your candor with that. I'm going to open it up to questions. And I know Diana wanted to ask a question. She was having some trouble with her sound. And this actually was a question that I don't know if Diana asked, but someone else asked during registration is, those of you who have transitioned from an LLC to a nonprofit or a 501c6 to a 501c3. I know there's others who are interested in hearing more about that. And I know, Amanda, you have some experience with that. So just wanted to open it up to your answer.
Sure. So like I said, we started out as an LLC, and when we decided to become a nonprofit, because we wanted to keep the same name, we just had to sign over the rights to the name from the LLC to the new nonprofit entity. And then we just went about registering it through the state as you would a nonprofit. And we registered you have to register at the state level and obviously the federal level as a nonprofit. And so we did that with the state and then submitted the federal application a couple months later, because it is much more extensive than just registering with the state. And it was a pretty seamless process. So I don't know if there's anything more specific that Diana wanted to know about that, but like I said, it wasn't a really challenging thing to do.
Great. And we had a question from Shop Local Rally, kind of connected to that. I don't know if you can go off mute to answer your question.
There we go. Hey, thank you guys. So yeah, so we're over here. We have been around for, gosh, I think 14 years now, but we were originally founded as the Greater Raleigh Merchants Association that started in 1941. And so we really shifted to the Independent Business Alliance model over in 2011. And so with that, we have the traditional business model, the membership program, and then we've always done a large event in the city, the town's Christmas parade. The organization started, founded, ran. And then with that, we started doing other events, beer festivals, fall festivals, to kind of always have members included and give them an opportunity to do public events. Those events have grown to pretty much almost all of them are 25,000 plus people. Our largest events are 65, 85,000. And so with the event side, there is a lot of liability with that. So we've looked at, and obviously there's no tax benefits when you're doing it from a C6 side. So all the beer we're buying, all the wristbands, the cups, anything and everything. And we don't ask for anything to be donated. All of our events are sustainable to where we have in turn turned them to where we support the business through that. We buy everything. So anyways, long story short, we're looking at transitioning. If we were to have a 501c3 that was just the events division, our C6 that does the membership advocacy work, kind of what that would look like. Obviously, you mentioned, having the same director to manage both, but also looking from a payroll perspective, we're a staff of 3.5. So how would that run and work to still manage and operate both?
Put on your seatbelt. If you can hear me okay. So we're a staff of 3, including myself, actually 3.5. We have an advocate on our foundation side. And then I do staff sharing, fund sharing, resource sharing between the C6 and the C3 with my staff. So we have a communications manager and a membership coordinator. So we have an agreement that is a written document between the foundation and the C6 side that does payroll sharing. So you have to be careful in your budget to make sure that it's just an resource sharing line item and that it doesn't appear as income onto one side or the other, because that'll just really it just disallows you to tell an accurate map of what your income will look like on one side, just because it comes out of one side and into the other. So really it's not an income sharing, but a resource sharing line item. We do have 2 payrolls. I work with the payroll department so that they know that there's a set percentage of allocated hours. So when I put in communication hours, I will say to them, perhaps one of my employees is that we do every 2 weeks. So 76 on the foundation side or 76 on the IBA side and 4 on the other side, they know there's a set percentage right now of when that time will be used towards all these different events. So for example, our Noel night sounds like one of your larger events. And so we know when we need to spend more time on that. First Fridays, we just launched, but they're taking up an extraordinary amount of time of just organizationally and operationally. We also do a really big coupon book sale, and we call it the Be Local book. And so we have hours for that. And that's another huge event. I don't really know about putting that on the C3, shifting your events to the C3 side. The logistics and the operations on the C3 and the C6 would be very similar and really challenging. It's just logistically layered. So there's that. And I can share more information, offline too, to not take up or capitalize too much time here, but I hope that answered your question just a little bit. Also sponsorships, right? That's a really nice way to buffer that, is to get as many sponsors as you can. So it doesn't matter what side you're on, the C3 or the C6, that'll cover some of those costs, tax or not tax deductible,
Great. Yeah. And we'll definitely connect people afterwards. So there's specific questions you have for any of our presenters. Definitely keep that in mind when I send out the recording, and any kind of links that are shared, to just go ahead and say, hey, I want to ask Lauren more questions. How do I get in touch with her? So that would be fantastic. Another question we received during the registration was, what role do cities play in helping your groups get started? And maybe not cities, but other government municipalities. How did that work at all? Or does it work?
I'll start with one of the kind of downsides of the co-op model, and that is it's not a traditional model, and cities and county entities, they're just more familiar with chambers and member organizations, even though we are a member organization. So we feel like we've kind of done our work in parallel. And of course, there's been some collaborations with the County Economic Development Board and with the main, city in Sonoma County. They sponsor this holiday magazine we do, but that co-op thing, it sort of is like when they just don't consider us. We're not invited to the, all chamber leader meetings and that kind of thing, because we just don't fit. And that's been hard for us, I would say.
I can speak to a little bit of my experience. When we relaunched the program, we actually reached out to over 40 different nonprofits and other organizations across the state to help us build the program. And so there was a lot of meetings about what the program should even be, mission, vision, values, that sort of thing. And so it's been amazing to create such a large network across the state. One thing I guess I would say is when you're looking at partnering with these other organizations, I think looking back for me, it would have been really helpful to think really clearly about what the ask is for these organizations, and have just a good idea of what the partnership might look like, and how they can help you and how you can help each other. We kind of brought as many people on board as possible, which was amazing. But I think at some point it kind of deterred from the actual program initiative a little bit, and we had to kind of step back and reorganize.
Any other from the audience, if you've worked at all or gotten support to start up from your city government or other towns? I know with the bid, I'm sure you had a lot of connections, Amanda, with that. So don't know if you want to add anything.
Sure. We actually partnered with the bid on a micro grant program for small businesses in the specifically one area. So the bid that I'm referring to is the Hyannis Main Street Business Improvement District. So it's only in one town on the Cape, which is again 15 towns. but it's considered an entitlement district, so it has access to a lot more funding potential. So we were able to partner with them on a microgrant program for businesses in the area. And it's been a nice relationship because we, having been small business owners, were able to actually really administer the program in a way that I think the people who work for the bid haven't been small business, so they just don't have the like experience. So that's been really good. We get a tremendous amount of support from the town when we do our events. Again, that's one town. But in the beginning, it was challenging. And I think we had to prove ourselves that we were, really an economic development driver here in town. And then just recently, the county government has invited us to come speak to them to present our research that we've been doing for the last 3 years. And the chambers have been really good about, not all of them, but a lot of them have been good about taking our messaging and our research and sharing it with their members. And like I said, we want to complement what they do. We're not competing with what they do. So that's been really good as well. And then other towns have invited us to present to their select boards. So I think we've been pretty well received, but before we became a nonprofit, we didn't have as many of those opportunities. So, I mean, we developed the street cred, but we still had to, I think becoming a nonprofit just definitely opened it up to a lot of people, a lot more opportunity.
Awesome. Just recognizing that we have 4 really unique nonprofits or structures, and lots of wisdom in these four folks that are at the table right now. So while we have our local leaders roundtable, we're actually starting a new program that will start June 22nd also at 1 o'clock Eastern time. It's called Moose's Corner. Local First Arizona is going to be our first kind of deep dive into giving the local spotlight to that organization. Michael Schumann, who is a local economist and author, he's going to be the person shining that spotlight, asking questions, and distilling really like, what do we all have to learn from each individual business network, whether they're a 501c3, C6, or something completely different. So if you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend signing up for that one. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And then, of course, we're also going to have another local leaders roundtable in July, which is all about what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to us? Amoeba has recently expanded our mission to include DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. So we want to hear from you. What do you think about? So it'll be a facilitated conversation, and that will be July 13th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And again, I'll put those links in the chat before we sign off. But I just want to remind you all that we're going to send a recording of today's event. But also feel free, because we didn't get to hear from everybody, if there are things that are really exciting to you or things you have more questions about, reach out to me. I'll find more answers. I'll connect you with these local leaders. And I definitely want to thank you all for being here today. Especially want to thank you, the